If you're someone who really likes reading and likes the idea of having a reading journal, but feels like it's such a big commitment or you don't really know what to write and you're looking for some idea of a very low pressure reading journal, I think the annual reading journal would be a great option for you. I started this reading journal last year and I've included data from 2018 up till today because that's the first year when I started tracking my reading, and I will be continuing this journal this year and, well, all the years ahead. At least that's what I'm planning to do. I also have a more traditional yearly reading journal that I will show you in one of the upcoming videos, but in this video I want to show you this one. And I think the biggest advantage of this reading journal is that, well, it's annual, so you can actually fill it in just once a year at the end of the year where you already know what kinds of books you read. So you can use it to collect your reading stats, book of the year spreads, and just focus on the essential things that you specifically want to track. So let me show you how I organize my annual reading journal and the benefits that I see. First of all, let me address this gorgeous notebook that I have. It's from Paper Blanks. I used their notebook for my yearly reading journal last year. Wasn't a big fan of it, but I think that for the annual thing, and I counted, and it's gonna last me, well, 10 more years at least if I stick to the same number of books that I read last year. Because the idea is that this reading journal will last you for many years, I would recommend getting a hardcover notebook because a softcover one might look a little bit worn out in a couple of years. And also I would recommend a dot grid paper if you want to make any kind of tables, any kind of spreads, or for example, you want to organize your statistics without using stickers like I'm doing, or for example, you want to draw your graphs. Also, the dot grid paper would be really great for this. So it starts very simple, just with a couple of stickers. These were the ones that I got from AliExpress. And then I have the title, Annual Reading Journal. What I usually do, I find the images that I like on Pinterest and I print them on a sticker paper. Of course, you can also use the regular paper and glue, but what I figured out lately is that when you use a lot of glue, especially on a thinner paper, this one is quite thick, the back of the page would not look very straight and it would look wavy because of the glue. Even though I tried to be very precise and neat with my glue, still I prefer just to print it on a sticker paper and then cut it out. Same goes for the title. I'm not great at lettering. I'm planning to work on that, but at this point not really. So I just use Canva to create some kind of titles and then I print them. So these titles that you will see throughout the reading journal, yeah, they're just done in Canva and printed on sticker paper. The first spread is just a very simple index, and as you can see, there is not much happening in this journal. That's why I said it's a very low commitment, low pressure kind of reading journal. The main reading goal that I have and that I want to focus on is reading around the world. That is why it has a separate spread. And then I just have a year by year spread. As you can see, only 44 pages fit 7 years of my reading, but it's also because I did not read a lot in 2018 and 2019, but still the idea that this will be an ongoing journal and I will have all of my books with their ratings from 2018 and until this notebook lasts me. I've already mentioned that I have the Reading Around the World spread as my main reading goal, to read more from different countries, but I also have this spread, which is basically the summary of the rating systems that I use. And until this year, I was using a CAWPILE. If you're not familiar with it, I will leave the link down below to the video of, I believe, the creator of this system. I think it is a very good system. CAWPILE stands for Character, Atmosphere, Writing, Plot, Intrigue, Logic, and Enjoyment. But at some point, I started feeling like it's a little bit too much. So I decided to basically merge the intrigue and logic and plot together, and I came up with another acronym, which is SPACE. So S stands for style and writing, everything about the writing style, the form of the text that you're reading. P unites plot intrigue and logic, so focuses on the storyline, on the events on the logic of the plot. A is for atmosphere, C for characters, and E for enjoyment, so I didn't change much. And I think that it's a more concise system, so this year I'm sticking to it. And yeah, if you find it a bit easier, feel free to use it too and let me know what you think about it. I've only started using it this year, but so far it's been a little bit easier for me to assess the text, to rate the text that I'm reading with the space rather than with a CAWPILE. And here, as you can see, I also have used, well, some stamps, but mainly the stickers. Again, I made them with Canva and then I just printed them, and all of these images were just something that I found on Pinterest and printed on a sticker paper. Same goes for the map. I have the map of the world, and the idea is that I color a country and I also write the name of the country on top of the page. The idea is to cover all of this background with countries later, and I'm doing quite well, but there's still a lot of books from different countries that I am planning to read. And in general, I think that this is a very nice visual spread. I found the map online and I printed it, but I think that if you don't want to use the printer or you don't have access to the printer, it's okay just to create the list of countries, maybe by continent. I've seen some of these spreads online and they look incredible. For me, it works well with a map. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to draw it by myself. That is why I printed it. But I think this one makes it a little bit more visual. And just to point out, I only list the countries and color the countries, books from which I read starting 2018, because this is the first year in my reading journal. Because when I was little, I think I read a lot of fairy tales from all over the world. So for example, India would definitely be colored if I chose to put all the countries from which I read books since I was born, because I remember having quite a large book with Indian folk tales when I was a kid, but I only focus now on the countries, books from which I read as an adult. So that is why it probably does not reflect my overall reading experience, but it still looks quite good to me. And now that's basically it for the overall stats. I think it's a good idea to choose like a one reading goal or maybe two, something that you want to focus on, whether it's a genre tracker or maybe the gender of the writer or the date or time period when the book was published or written. For me, it's the countries, and then I jump right into my yearly spreads. So for these 2 years that were not very productive in terms of reading, I only read 4 books in 2018 and 4 in 2019. I have very short spreads. They literally take 1 page a year. I have the title of the book, the author's name, then the rating based on the CAWPILE system, so this is out of 10, and then the star rating. Also, I have the overall number of books that I read this year, which is 4, and the covers and also some of the stats. Again, if you do not want to print the covers, I use Canva to make them all look nice and make sure they're the same size and then print them on sticker paper and place them here. Just the list would look okay. I also print my stat circles, but of course, if you have, well, anything round that you can trace or stencils, for example, that also would work really well. So I like how I can input some data from previous years, but I don't really want to write anything specific about these books. So I just have this very quick, short overview, and it works for me quite well. Now it's the next year, which is a little bit more extensive. So as you can see, it takes 2 pages and it's basically the same structure. And the only thing I added is the book of the year spread. I started having mixed feelings about this whole book of the year arrangement because I don't know how you can compare certain kind of books objectively. For example, here I have American Gods, Metamorphosis, and Persepolis. So those are very different genre, and Persepolis is a graphic novel. Metamorphosis is the ultimate classic. I also reread 1984 and it didn't make it to the top 3 just because it was a reread. So I feel a bit uncomfortable comparing books with each other, but if you're someone who likes doing this or just having some kind of overview of maybe one book of the month, if you read several books a month or one book of the season, I think that would work a bit better for me. But in general, the structure is very similar. And as you can see here, I have exactly the same structure for 2021. The only difference is that here I chose to draw the stars, but I think they look neater if I use the stamp. My stamp is also from AliExpress, I believe. I had this stamp for ages, but I think I want to look for something better on Etsy, because you see there used to be this line and I had to remove it with a knife, a paper knife. So it's a bit messy, and also I think that the stamp is too large for the stars, so you cannot really see when you stamp how exactly your stars are going to be lined up on the page. But anyways, we're getting closer to the year where I read more books. I read 17 books in 2022, and I have one whole spread for Book of the Year. Again, same structure, but I've also added the title page now. So this is like the title page, overall number of books, Book of the Year. Then I go into the list of books and the covers, and I get to stats. When I printed all of my stats, I realized that I will have a lot of blank space on this page, so I decided to write down some quotes from the books that I read in 2022, some of my favorite quotes, and I think it's quite a good idea. I continued doing it in 2023 and 2024. So this was the way I organized it in the last years. One thing that I noticed is that I don't know why I did this, but I really prefer this kind of arrangement when you have the list and the covers on like one spread. But here and last year, I chose to separate it. So first I have the covers, then I have the titles written down as a list. I fixed this mistake this year, and I will not repeat it again. I also put this little sticker next to a book, which is a book club read. And I think this is also a good idea to track something. So instead of having like a whole separate spread with the book club reads, I just use this little sticker, and whenever I see it, I remember that, yeah, those were my book club reads this year. Finally, we're getting to the last year spread. I still have my Book of the Year spread and the overall number of books that I read. Then the covers and the stars, and then the list again. But before the list, I ended up with a blank page, so I used some quotes again. And then we go into stats, and this is where I want to show you my stats closer. So what exactly I'm tracking. First of all, I do not really track the genre, but instead I create a genre cloud. So how I do this? Throughout the year, I have an Excel spreadsheet, or, well, you can do it on Goodreads if you're on Goodreads. I note down the main genre of the book. Of course, the book can have multiple genre, but I just note down the main one. And then I just use one of the websites that lets you create a word cloud for free. I'm gonna leave the link down below. And I just put in the genre from the one that I read the most to the one that I read the least, and it organizes it by itself in this nice word cloud. So for example, you can see that literary fiction, historical fiction, and education, those were my top 3 genre. But then if you look around, you can also see the sci-fi and fantasy and mystery, poetry, horror. So it organizes it in terms of the font size based on the sequence that you give to the website. So I think it's quite handy. And then I just screenshot it, put it into Canva, and print it on sticker paper. Second thing that I track is the format of the book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, novel, short story. I also track my overall star rating. Do I give it 1 star, 2, or 3? And as you can see, most of the books are 3 stars for me, so quite average. not bad. Then I track the number of pages. So it's less than 100, more than 100, and I even managed to read one book, it was It by Stephen King, that is more than 1,000 pages. I also have the reading tracker per month. So I see that September was the most productive month for me and I read 11 books. But don't think that I'm a superhero because most of these books were like under 100 pages. So yeah, it wasn't like full months of 11 novels. No. Then I have my years of when the book was written, and yeah, I read mainly something more modern from 90s to today, but I also managed to read some books from 1800s. I believe Frankenstein was one of them, and that was a very good read, very interesting. Also, I track the format, whether it's a physical book, audio, or ebook, then languages that I read in. I even managed to read one book in German. I'm so proud of myself, even though that was one of the 3 one-star reads for me. And I think I did a pretty good job in terms of the countries. I read books from 26 countries. So this is also the stats that is reflected in my map spread, of course. So these are all the stats that I track. And again, if I didn't have the opportunity to print them on sticker paper, I would not do the donut or the pie chart. I would just do this kind of tracker, and you can draw it very neatly using the dot grid. So that is why I would recommend this specific type of paper. And that's it. That's basically how I organize it. I will just quickly show you what I've changed for the next year. I know that I said you can basically fill it out once a year. So I could have waited till the end of 2025 and then organize it, but I think it's just not a lot of work for me. I will add stats at the end, but everything that I have to do now is just have the sticker, and I already have them prepared, and I will show you that in a second, and just write things down, and when I'm done with my rating, I would added. I have my TBR list on Goodreads, and at some point when I was sick and had a lot of free time, I printed, again with the help of Canva to make sure everything is the same size, I printed all the book covers of books on my TBR list. So this is what it looks like. I print them on A4, I cut them out, and I stick it in this sticker organizer that I have. So for example, if the next book that I decide to read would be Airport by Arthur Haley, I would just take it from here, and stick it into my reading journal. And again, you do not have to do this. I think just the list is fine, but for me, it just makes it a little bit more visual. And again, I did it when I was sick, so it was a pretty entertaining thing to do. And this is how I decided to organize my main spread. I have my list. On the right, I have the overall rating out of 10 based on the space system next to the title and the author. And here I have my star ratings, my covers, and also little green dots for the book club reads. And for the book of the year spread, which I really enjoy, I think it looks really beautiful, I use the stickers from this sticker book. I will leave the link down below. And this is what it looks like. It has some shelf stickers and then the book stickers and all the little details that you can add here. And when I calculated, I don't think this was the intention behind those stickers. Maybe it's just a happy coincidence. But first, I found the 12 books. So these would be my books of the month. Then I have 6 books. So between 2, I will choose 1, and then I have 3, and then I have 1 book of the year. As I've mentioned, I will not necessarily be looking for the 1 book of the year. Maybe I will just have the 3. I was really struggling last year to choose the book of the year, and you'll see it in my video when I upload it. And I don't know if I will be doing it this year, but I just left the space. So I think this is the sticker sheet That is, by the way, also available not as a part of a sticker book, but as a separate sticker sheet. I will leave all the links down below. I think it's perfect for your Book of the Year spread if you're doing that. I really enjoyed this spread and I'm looking forward to filling it out at the end of the year. But overall, that is it. As I've mentioned, a very low pressure reading journal. Just the list and the ratings. And then, of course, I will add my stats at the end. I don't think I will be using the printed stats, to be honest, maybe only for the genre cloud, but I really would like to try out to draw my own graphs. I think this would look very beautiful. And that's basically it. One little thing is something that I came up with while I was reading a lot of short stories last year. I decided to create a list because it's not the main focus of my reading journal, but I decided to create a list of my favorite short stories. I used to teach literature, so I think this was my habit from the days when I worked as a teacher, is I always was looking for a good short story that I can use in my classroom. Something that is not very lengthy because, let's face it, students don't really read these days, but also something that can initiate a lot of discussion in the classroom. Now, of course, I do not necessarily think about it, but I'm thinking about the short text that I would like to reread from time to time. So this is my list of the short stories that I like. And again, they're only from the books that I read from 2018. We have Sam Ray Bradbury, Cortázar, Shirley Jackson, and Capote. And basically what I do is when I read another short story collection, I would write down the title or the author and list some of my favorite short stories from that book. I actually haven't done it with the books from last year, so I definitely will have to do it. So that's the overview of my annual reading journal. Honestly, I think that it's just a great way to track your reading very quickly. And because you can always change the layout, you can always add things, remove things, it makes you very flexible. You can add one-sentence summaries. That's also what I was thinking about. But as I've mentioned, I have a regular yearly reading journal, so I will probably do it there. But this is something that I definitely am planning to keep for the next, at least 10 years. Hope it works out. Let me know what you think in the comment. Do you find like this is a good solution for someone who wants a reading journal but does not want a commitment, perhaps? And in general, share your experience with reading journals. I'm really looking for a solution that is not very time-consuming, but still I just love tracking my reading on paper in a paper notebook. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe not to miss some new videos about planning, about books, about journaling, stationery, and all of the other things that I love. Thank you so much and have a great day.